Welcome to the DVERT Brief. I'm Dr. Meg McBride, Director of the Domestic Violent Extremism Research and Translation Center at CNA. This podcast series highlights new research, trends, and findings on violent extremism in America. Designed for policymakers, practitioners, and anyone curious about the evolving domestic threat landscape, this AI-generated podcast delivers concise and accessible summaries of our latest work. Thanks for listening.
In today's episode, we'll be exploring key insights from our report, BTAM, the critical role of parents. Let's dive in.
Today we're exploring a finding that is often overlooked, and that's the idea that parents play an absolutely critical role in preventing targeted violence and terrorism.
Precisely. We can see this so clearly in the case of the 2021 school shooting at a high school in Michigan. A teacher saw a student with drawings of a gun, bullets, and the words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me." So, school administrators called the parents in.
Wow. So did they take him out of school for the day?
Unfortunately, no. The parents refused to take him out of school and didn't check his bag for a weapon. 2 hours later, the 15-year-old student opened fire, killing 4 people and wounding 7 others. That failure led to unprecedented involuntary manslaughter convictions for both parents.
Deeply troubling. Okay, so let's move from that one case to the broader data. How deep does this parental influence actually run?
This is what's so fascinating. Researchers were evaluating a behavioral intervention program in Wood County, Ohio, and get this. Even though they didn't ask any specific questions about parents in their interviews, stakeholders mentioned parents 88 times across 21 of 27 interviews. One stakeholder actually said that if you get a combative parent, there is nothing you can do. It just illustrated how immense their influence is throughout the threat management process.
Let's break it down. What role do parents play in the first stage, identification of the problem?
Well, parents might be the first to recognize that their child is exhibiting a concerning behavior. They could then be one of the first to reach out to schools or mental health service providers and ask for help, or even call a tip line to report a concern about their child.
Parents absolutely have tremendous potential to recognize those early warning signs. What about the second stage, behavioral threat assessment?
In this stage, parents may be asked to provide information about their child to assist a threat assessment. The Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines have a specific form for interviewing a parent or guardian.
Could parents choose not to cooperate with that process?
Unfortunately, yes. Parents can obstruct threat assessments by insisting their child is fine or refusing to share information with the school. In one case documented in the report, the parents even hired a lawyer to prevent the school from conducting a threat assessment, and the school ultimately had to expel that student. In other cases, parents have simply removed their children from school rather than go through a threat assessment.
Seems like some potential there for cases to slip through the cracks if parents don't inform the new school about past incidents.
Unfortunately, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so what about the third stage? Behavioral management.
Parents have a lot of influence over clinical care and behavioral management, especially because their permission is typically required for mental health providers and schools to share information about a minor with each other, and they can choose whether to enforce treatment and safety plans for their child. Parents are also usually the ones paying for their child's care and transporting them to receive that care. So if they choose not to, that can severely restrict their child's access to services. For example, in one case, the local county mental health services board provided parents with information on crisis resources for their child, but the parents never followed up to actually obtain those services.
That's frustrating. In general, though, aren't most parents just trying to advocate for their child?
Absolutely. While mental health providers and school resource officers may offer up what they believe to be the best path forward, parents may also have their own distinct sense of what is best for their child. They can also be powerful allies who make the difficult decision to report concerns that their child might be a threat, or who navigate complex systems to secure mental health treatment for their child.
The report talks about a case like that, right?
Yes. In one case, a mom called every single facility in the county to try to get her child a mental health assessment.
Wow, that's powerful. So what do we do? What are the key takeaways for practitioners like BTAM teams, school administrators, and community mental health providers?
Well, first, schools should proactively educate parents about the BTAM process. That includes informing parents of the school's responsibilities and the parents' rights as they relate to BTAM. They need to make sure that the whole community understands what BTAM is, what parents should expect if their child is going through that process, and what the goals and benefits of BTAM are. This can also help ease parents' concerns about law enforcement's role in the process, making it clearer that BTAM is about support, not scrutiny.
Okay, so that's the preventative piece. What about during an active case?
Right. The second point is to involve parents in the assessments. It's considered a best practice to notify the parents before conducting a behavioral threat assessment, even if it's not legally required. Having frequent, transparent, and empathetic communication with parents during the BTAM process helps schools and community-based service providers maintain healthy and productive relationships with the parents of at-risk children.
Right, those relationships are absolutely essential, especially because these things don't get solved in a week.
Not at all. It can take months, sometimes years. You have to have the family on your side. They are the long-term managers of the situation, not a short-term obstacle.
That's a really powerful distinction.
It is. I'll just add one last takeaway for BTAM teams, which is that they should communicate to parents that their goal is to balance the well-being of the at-risk child with the safety of other students, but be sensitive to the fact that parents are naturally and understandably going to be more focused on their own child. This podcast was produced with the assistance of artificial intelligence tools, but the content was based on research done by the DVERT Center, which is housed within CNA, a nonprofit research and analysis organization dedicated to advancing the safety and security of the nation. The research on which this podcast is based was supported by the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate. Adaptation of this research for the DVERT Brief was supported by the National Institute of Justice under award number 15PNI-J24GK00750-DOMR. The opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect those of DHS, S&T, or the Department of Justice.